Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. If you want to ask those questions, of course, you can go to Makana. You can ask the questions. You can vote on the questions. You can chat on the questions. And if you don't know how to get there, you can go to officehours.global/join. And if you can't get there, if you don't want to get there, you can also just go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global, and ask your questions there. Within the next day or so, we'll get those questions in, and just make sure that there's one question, that it's well formed, and that it's tech related. Those are the big things that are important. But go ahead and throw those into askofficehours.global. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions. Alex, what do we got?
First one's from Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. How would we install a Bird Dog PTZ camera on a tower on top of the highest mountain in Hot Springs for a 24/7 user-controlled earthcam? Need a parts list, software, and mounting hardware. This is the tower, and it looks like we have a photo here.
Do we see the photo here? I don't know if I would. Highest mountain in Hot Springs. I don't know how high the highest mountain in Hot Springs is. I think that the challenge really is you're probably not going to use a Bird Dog because if you're going to put it on outside, you're probably looking for an outside PTZ, or an outside camera. And most PTZs are not outside cameras. There are a couple, but they're really expensive. You're really looking for an outdoor enclosure for your camera that's going to be able to handle the weather, unless it's going to be a very short period of time. But it sounds like what you're trying to do is mount it. And if you're going to mount it and hold it there, you're going to want something that's going to be able to weather the storms. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, my son actually does this for a living. He installs stuff on these big towers, and there's a lot of engineering that goes into it. It's not as simple as you would think. And we did this at a festival 2 weeks ago where you could see the Space Needle there. And we had one of those really expensive cameras that Alex just alluded to. It's this one here. It's the Aero Rugged Outdoor. You can see it's got a little windshield, so when it rains, it could actually clean itself, and it's got a little air conditioning and heating. This one's 10 grand. Bird Dog does make a similar model. We just mounted this thing with a cable and a stand and some arms. So it was very, very simple. But if you want to do something a little more robust for long term, then you're going to want somebody who does this stuff for a living to actually go in there and use proper like truss style metals to make sure that thing doesn't blow off in a windstorm. He just lost a flag, a huge American flag, like massive, that blew off during a storm recently, and so there's danger to these things flying off and hitting things on the ground. So be careful.
Next question.
Next question comes from Tim Mann in Melbourne, Australia. Most of my Mac fleet, M1 and last gen Intel, are running Mac OS 12, which I've found to be very stable. Had a client request mainstage last night, which requires 13.5. Would you recommend clean installing Mac OS 13 or 14?
Go ahead, Oliver.
Is the question 13 or 14? Then I would go with 14. And clean install, you don't need to do a clean install really. I haven't done a clean install since maybe macOS 10, 15 or so. Apple is pretty good in removing all the old crap and making sure that the operating system at least is pretty stable, and also it's now encapsulated so that everything that concerns the operating system is inaccessible from any other process in the operating system. So it's pretty self-contained, and I think it's pretty safe to just update the operating system. If you will get messages from macOS if there are drivers installed that don't comply with the current versions, and you will have to reassign some access privileges for some processes, but basically that's it. And macOS 14 Sonoma, I've installed it yesterday on a customer's computer where there was a problem with the SMB access with the previous versions. I think they had like macOS 12 or so installed, where it took a long time for the volumes to mount, and with macOS Sonoma 14 is like instantly. So I think Apple makes progress in improving performance and removing bugs from the operating system. So I think you're pretty safe updating to 14.
I go in, Alex.
Yeah, in the past, I've never really had problems with upgrading, although every once in a while I'll do a fresh install. I still prefer this, maybe it's me just being paranoid, but I still prefer a clean install where you can run into problems where, and Oliver alluded to this, so if you have, for example, special kernel extensions or something, and you've upgraded your OS and those are probably not going to be supported, you'll get all sorts of warnings about that stuff, and none of that stuff will work anymore. So check the software, maybe make a list and see what you have and make sure that you've got the latest versions of all your pro apps, all your plugins, anything that needs to be updated. Some of this stuff you got to pay support licenses for to get the latest updates to make them compatible with Sonoma. So do check all that stuff. And in general, of course, clean install these days, it really doesn't take that long, I find. So I generally prefer that.
Go ahead, Elias.
I mean, it depends if you're doing the clean install from CD or floppy these days, right? But in the old days, I don't know, I've been burned on the IT side by OS upgrades way too many times. If I've got a choice to either do an upgrade or just do a fresh install, I just do a fresh install. It makes me sleep better at night.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana asks, would you mind giving us an explanation of QUIC and WIP protocols for streaming?
I think we're gonna save that for a whole second hour. So trying to break that down, that's one that we'd probably want to set up for and not answer off the top of our head. But we have some great people in the group that can solve that. So stay tuned. Next question.
Brian Enright in New York City is asking panel thoughts on the tech of the white women Zoom call last night with 150,000 participants.
I didn't know that they did one. So it was evidently big enough to be 150,000, but not big enough to reach the mainstream press. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see how they handled the 150,000 people. There's a couple different ways to do that. In Zoom, typically you're breaking those into multiple rooms in the cloud, or you can stream it. At 150,000, what I will say is that I would have streamed it. I don't know why you would do it all in Zoom at 150,000 people unless you're going to do paired sharing or some small groups or something like that. If you're going to just do a broadcast, it's not the most efficient way to do that. It may have been what they knew how to do, I guess. But it's a pretty heavy lift inside of Zoom to do 150,000 people. So, hopefully we'll find out more about the tech. Next question.
Jacob Goodnight in Indianapolis, Indiana. How much audio delay do you need to achieve perfect lip sync when using professional cameras with an external mic connected via USB audio interface to Zoom? I know it varies based on exact setup, but curious if everyone is around the same milliseconds delay.
Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say is that it depends on your signal chain, basically. What camera are you using? What delay is the decoding, encoding already introducing compared to what the microphone or the audio keychain provides, the audio chain provides. Sorry, if I have to do this, I use MemoLive to send both audio and video into Zoom, and then I can use the built-in system in MemoLive that allows you to measure the difference between audio and video and make sure that it, at least at the point where it goes into Zoom, stays in sync. And I would probably do something like that if you need to do that and send both audio and video from one app already in sync into Zoom.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I wouldn't really try to predict this. What you'd want to do is test this at the end stage, wherever the broadcast lands. You'd want to be recording there, and then you can check how many frames offset your audio is from your video. If I had to do it blind, I would assume 1 frame per video processing device. So assume that your video is going to slip 1 frame at camera stage. If you're running through an ATEM switch or any video switcher, assume it's going to slip another frame there. If you have a third video processing device, assume that your video is going to slip back 1 more frame there. But that's only if I had to do it blind, and those situations are fairly rare.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not sure how getting the senses of like how much delay everybody's using is really going to help you here. If it's the concern of maybe that you have to apply so much delay that there's something maybe wrong with the system, I mean, it's going to vary from person to person. I mean, in my exact setup, I had a clapper board and I counted the frames in DaVinci Resolve and I found out I needed 200 milliseconds. So that's what I need. Of course, there are more sophisticated devices you can get on the market like this SyncIt. If you really want absolute precision on the audio video sync, you can get these devices. They're not horribly expensive, but I wouldn't call them cheap at $300 or £300, whatever they are. So it's a bit of an investment in there. So you do want to calculate that and find out exactly what you need to get that right.
Yeah, and the quick and easy way when we're really trying to test the entire pipeline is we'll record whatever people are going to see. So if you were doing it in Zoom, you would allow it to play out and just tell the cloud to record. Again, that may not be perfect, but it tells you what's going out to the other end. If you're streaming, it can go out to YouTube. If or sometimes we're streaming and we're sending out HLS as a ladder, and we oftentimes just have one of the little slates that you'd see in a movie that is about $15. You can get a cheap one that's like $15 on Amazon. And you just hit record and then just snap it shut and then go grab that record, take it into your NLE and see where that impulse matches up with the chord. Now, people will clap. Clapping is not very accurate most of the time. So it's just there's a lot of movement here, and it's usually you're not going to get down to a frame with clapping. And so typically we do that. We also oftentimes cross-check it by having people say P words. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers is a pretty common one, but we have a long soliloquy that we have people do. Typically, it's in most basic setups, you can guess to be about 120 to 180 milliseconds of delta if you're running a two camera two path system. So those are things to think about. That's kind of if I'm going to turn something on and I don't get to know what I'm doing, I'll probably turn it to 150. Like if I see this system, I'll probably turn it to 150 or 120, somewhere in there. Just knowing that, the other interesting thing is it's better to be ahead than behind. People buy a frame or two. If you get more than that, it looks just as bad. But people will put up with you being a little ahead more than a little behind, because in the real world, we see it all the time. Light gets to us faster than sound. So our brain is used to seeing video ahead of audio because it happens every day, all day. And so it corrects for that and doesn't know what to do with audio in front of video because it never sees that. So I think that those are some things to consider. Next question.
Next question is from Paul Wallace in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Strauss Wagner Elche MMCX to USB-C upgrade cable with Mic+Remote 4-foot length. Would this be a great mic for your iPhone?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, this is really more designed for taking high-end headphones and giving you the ability to add a little mic. So it's only $39. This isn't going to be a replacement for a high-end mic. If anything, I'd say you're better off getting what everybody else here uses, those Shocks OpenCom headphones if you want a mic, because the boom puts the mic right here, whereas this device, it's a remote that gives you up and down. You can see it here where it goes up and down, so you can go to the next track or change your volumes. But there's certain headphones that it's compatible with. There's some Audis and Biodynamic. These are all very high-end headphones. So this isn't for like normal people. There is a chip inside of here that does the digital to analog conversion, and so that's really what you're paying for. This is a higher end digital analog conversion than just a regular USB to 3.5 millimeter cable. So I don't know. It's nothing special, Paul. So I don't know. There's better things out there. I know you love your microphones, but this is just a pretty basic thing.
Next question.
Ryan Thomason, Houston, Texas asks, this pod has incredible quality. Can someone get some insight into what they do to make this look and sound so good?
Go ahead, Elias.
Artificial intelligence. No, seriously. Getting the microphone nice and close to my face is how I get decent sound. Sometimes I'll use a DBX286 to process my voice. Right now it's just going raw into my audio interface. For me, the best upgrade I did was treat my room and use a shotgun microphone. That's all.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get that microphone. So always start with a good quality microphone and make sure you get it close to your mouth. Of course, like Elias was saying, the The sound of the room too, treating the room's good. I'm just going to cut to the video there. I was looking at this and you know, you got the nice shallow depth of field. That SM7B looks like it's a little further away than I would probably like, but it's kind of hard to tell with the shallow depth of field there. But, you know, probably is using a Super 35 or full frame camera there with a lens, you know, with the aperture fully open there. And it's got, you know, looks like that background's probably fairly close to him. It looks like it could be maybe 5 feet, I'm guessing there maybe. But it, you know, it looks good. He's got an SM7B. I don't know what the rest of the signal chain is, but it sounds okay. I've heard that mic sound better. So again, probably a lot of that is due to the room. We've got glass doors and windows behind them there. I don't know what the rest of the room looks like, but there probably could be some treatment done on the ceilings at least. But glass is horrible. It looks pretty, but it's terrible.
Go ahead, Jesse.
It breaks my heart that you call this incredible. This should be the baseline if you're going to be doing a podcast, broadcast, especially a video podcast. I think they got 3 cameras, 2 SM7Bs, and they know how to use all of them within the, you know, the threshold of accuracy. Yeah, this is what you should be broadcasting if you're broadcasting.
I think the one thing that I'm curious about is I don't know if they're in the same room. So the value on each one of those looks like it's the value on each one of those sides. I'm not sure that I think that what they're trying to do is they are in the same room. You can see a little bit of a laptop on one, so that's the reason I thought they might be in the same room. Do they have ever? I don't know if they do a shot where you see both of them together.
They do have a wide shot, and you can see the front of the lenses. I'm guessing it's Sony lenses, but I could be wrong on that. The wide shot, they don't use it too much. They usually go to the split screen.
Yeah, but you know what was interesting is looking at it. If we look at it here, what's interesting here is that I realized you could kind of create an interesting look and feel by having 2 people looking at monitors that are kind of off frame, and it would look, you know, that you could reproduce this over Zoom, doing local records, and then put your podcast back together. I'm not sure if I really like this look. I'm just saying that if you like this look, you could probably do it that way. The framing is a little awkward for our, you know, this works okay, but he doesn't have enough nose room, and you see that in an earlier shot. I think when it's a whole. Let's see if I can find out. He's by himself, but when he's by himself, it feels really like. So what's happening here, I think, is that because as was said before, that they're in the same room. The other guy's over here, and so they're trying to frame them apart. You know, they're trying to make sure that you don't see the other person here. And so as a result, they aren't giving him the proper nose room. His body should be over here. Like, you know, it definitely shouldn't be, if this is the center point, it definitely shouldn't be on this side, you know, of the frame. It can be in the middle or typically over here. If you were doing this in a normal framing, that's how you would frame that. And what's happening is that their environment or their setup is driving their camera angle, which is usually kind of what we definitely try to avoid. We want to frame everybody exactly the way they should be framed, and not allow the environment to, mess that up. You know, and if you can you show that shot again? There was a shot of them wide. Oh, there we go.
So we got the wide up. If you look in the right, you can see one of the lenses. If anybody knows that lens, please identify it.
Yeah. So and so it's yeah, I guess I would say, as was said before, I think this would be, I would say, minimum viable product. You know, from my perspective of the kind of stuff that we like to shoot. I think that I would rather see this show over Zoom, to be honest, where they're both looking straight at, like, this. It's a very uncomfortable 2-up, in my opinion, to do that. And the way we avoid that in broadcast is having talking heads that are in boxes, and having them in the same room, especially in that room. I mean, if it was a great studio, it'd be one thing, but that is all hard surfaces, so I'm sure that probably took some processing to get to where they are now. So anyway, yeah. So I don't think I would necessarily. I think that what makes you feel like it's a good one is that they have a solid mic, probably too far away, but it's a solid mic, and they have short depth of field. Those are the big things, and that's what we talk a lot about here. is those are like really key factors. Super 35 sensor or larger, and a good mic and some reasonable light. They just have a lot of natural light, which is kind of working, but kind of blowing out as well. But those are going to get you a long way to an MVP or minimum viable product. Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana is asking, what should a streaming producer know about UDP and TCP?
Go ahead, Elias.
Day to day, probably not going to make that much of a difference which protocol you use. Think of it this way. TCP, when a packet is transmitted using TCP, every packet that you send is going to be acknowledged by the receiver. It's kind of like registered mail with a signature. UDP is considered best effort. Your computer's just going to send that packet, and it doesn't care if it reaches the destination or not. The advantage with UDP is there's less overhead. There's no acknowledgement packet required. So if latency is a bigger concern, UDP can be the better way to go. There is a protocol, there's a variant of it called reliable UDP that I believe has some checking on it. But day to day, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference. If you're dabbling in the world of NDI, you probably notice that there's some NDI senders that can be set up in different modes, like TCP, multiple TCP, UDP, or reliable UDP. It all depends on your network. That's TCP versus UDP and how to set all those switches up. That's an entire show unto itself, I'm sure. But the quick summary: TCP, signature on delivery; UDP, best effort. It'll get there when it'll get there, hopefully, and your computer doesn't really care if it does get there.
Next question.
Brian Bovado in Detroit, Michigan asks, I have a client who needs to bring a remote caller into Zoom, but the caller can't dial into Zoom. Any suggestions besides a RODEcaster, etc.?
So my guess is that they can't. The question is can they not dial into Zoom specifically, or can they not dial into any kind of video conferencing? So are they limited to Teams? Are they limited to Meet? And that can be a company or an organizational limitation to make that actually work, or did they actually have to call in? So they can call in to Zoom by just using the phone. So if they can't use any video conferencing, then that's what you might have to do. If they have to use Teams, or they have to use Google Meet, or some other, because that's what their organization manages, then you may be looking at getting another computer and screen scraping, as opposed to, I'm assuming that you're trying to do something that maybe is more production ready, which is Zoom. And so if you are, if you're trying to work around that, then you may be screen scraping. Remember that Teams will also do NDI outputs as well, so you can get a debris-free NDI output to make that actually work. Go ahead, Elias.
Sure. I think so. Teams and WebEx at this point, they both do NDI native out. So as soon as you can turn that, kind of like what Alex was saying, as soon as you can either do screen scraping and get an NDI clean feed, well, you can now take that digital signal and send it wherever you need to in your pipeline. So it's a bit of work to do, but it's definitely doable. I'd say get that into, again, shout out, it's the NDI super panel later, so shout out to NDI tools, but that'd be the way that I do it, and that's the way I've actually done it to bridge. Just trying to think which streaming platforms we bridged. We did that a long time ago, but yeah, that's what we did. We got the callers into NDI and then sent those NDI signals into down the chain.
And if you're only doing a one-on-one, I think that Teams is capable of 1080p. So if you're only having one person come in, as soon as you have two, Teams will drop to 720. So just know that you're going to see lower resolution. Even if they're delivering 1080p, the processing is 720 on Teams as soon as you have more than one other person in the room. So you have the two, you can talk one-on-one at 1080, and then it drops after that. Go ahead, Oliver.
Just a quick plug for Mimo Live here, because bridging stuff is really easy if you have the right tool. So you can bridge anything from anything to anything. So it's just a matter of finding out what your user can use, and then just bring it into Zoom.
And depending on how important it is to the person to look good, we always warn people that if we're doing a Zoom meeting and you're in Teams or something else, you're probably not going to look as good as everybody else. We just want you to know that. But but we warn people so that they don't come back and say, well, why was mine? We're like, hey, the technology isn't there. And we have found that 95% in a large event, 95% of the people that we tell that will switch over to Zoom. They'll figure out a way to do it because they don't want to be second tier to their peers. Next question.
Andy Kokendorfer in VR, Florida asks, I continue to nag Zoom about my feature request for mic quality meters, so presenters know that they are becoming unintelligible. Any third-party plugins to do this? Example. Looks like we have a YouTube video link there.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Now, I don't know about any third-party plugins that do this. There's kind of like there's a wall that I'm hitting with this premise, and that is that if the person is having bad audio because of mic technique, I don't know that like a little flashing red dot on their screen will stop them from doing that. And if it's not a mic technique problem, if the audio is degrading because of technical issues beyond their computer, I don't know what they do about it. So I'm wondering, like, if the simplest solution of just saying, hey, can you get back on mic, is the quickest way to get to the finish line on this problem.
Go ahead, Alex.
100% agree. People need to be trained on some basic mic technique. That said, I do think that having meters inside of Zoom would be valuable. But if I put my business cap on, trying to think from their perspective, if they were to do something like that, I think the way they would do it would be through an app that would be optional. Because just remember, the moment you start adding stuff like this, we're increasing the processor usage, and Zoom has a lot of support emails that they get every single day from people having problems with the Zoom client. So they probably don't want more support requests if it starts chewing up processor resources. So I think having an app inside of the Zoom client app store with system requirements and making it aware of, like, okay, it may increase CPU usage or change your video quality, I think would be the way to do it.
Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, so if you want to do something on the Mac, there's an app called Crisp that uses AI to improve the audio quality, especially if you have background noise and things like that. But the other thing I would say is like how they do it here on office hours is like they have a back channel, a talkback channel that allows the producers to alert us to these problems. And then also we have a meter, which we just joins the meeting and then shows us things like loudness and basic type of quality problems. So something you can learn from office hours here.
Go ahead, Alex.
And just one thing too, now that the ATEM allows you to, with the latest firmware, you can on the USB webcam output select, if you have the higher end models like the Extreme, you can actually select any input source to be sent out via UVC webcam out. So what I've done is I have a separate computer that actually runs an audio meter app with a little audio interface, and then I pipe that into Zoom. So that's another way that you can do it. So it actually doesn't take much to do it that way, and it's a very, very handy way to get meters inside of Zoom.
Next question.
Nigel Dessau in Austin's asking, what are your thoughts on the Elgato USB hub for Stream Deck Plus, or even the XLR dock? Just an expensive USB hub and a cheap XLR audio interface, or a good integration?
Go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, this came through my email yesterday or the day before. There are now 2 extensions to the Stream Deck Plus that you sort of take the bottom off your Stream Deck and you plug this in the back. It's either a USB extension or there's even an XLR, which I suspect uses one of its other audio products to the driver. They're not cheap, but if you're trying to limit the amount of clutter on your desk and trying to give yourself a few more, particularly the USB ports to a Mac Mini, it might be an interesting solution. But I would worry about what the driver on the XLR is.
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I posted this yesterday in the companion user group, and I never got so much flame. It's also, people are so upset that it was only for the Stream Deck Plus. They love their 32, so they were just going bananas. And I was like, hey, don't shoot the messenger, man. I'm just trying to show you some cool new stuff. But the thing that people don't talk about is that, so there's 4 ports, but they're not all equally the same. There's a host port, and that cable is included in the box. And then there's another port if you need power. This will charge your laptop. So if you have something like I have a MacBook Air, it only has 2 ports. So taking that port would take it up. So you really only have these other 4. So I have 232 Stream Decks in addition to my Plus. So I would plug my 2 other Stream Decks, and this would help clean up some clutter. The other cool thing is it does have some SD card slots on the side. So that is kind of nice if you're traveling with this thing and want to clean up your desk or have it in your hotel where you're not having a bunch of stuff dangling off. The only thing I would like is an Ethernet. It would be the icing on the cake.
What is the little thing on the back for?
The little thing on the back.
Yeah, there's looks like a USB-C.
Yeah, that's what plugs into the Stream Deck. So the Stream Deck itself. So yeah, instead of having the cable, it would just hook right onto it. And it's only $59. It's not that expensive.
Go to Elias.
I mean, a good USB 3 hub that's powered is going to be at least that much. And it's the other question, I haven't had a chance to look it up. Is that Elgato hub powered, or is it just using USB host power?
That's what I was saying, is that this last port right here is the power. So it would take power from your PD. You could put 100 watt USB-C power, PD power into it, and so like your MacBook charger would go into there.
Okay, yeah. In that case, then I'd say that's pretty compelling. That's a nice all-in-one unit. I've run into issues before on some machines where I'll plug in 2, 3, 4 Stream Decks, especially on ARM machines, and I'll just run out of USB power. I have to use a powered USB hub, so that looks cool. I might actually add it to cart later, although it's in Canadian dollars, so it might be really expensive.
Next question.
Scott Hancock in Tokyo is asking, in Zoom webinar, any ideas on why share sound would be unavailable? Confirm that screen sharing setting is one participant.
Go ahead, Elias.
Might be something in meeting settings for that Zoom tenant that has disabled sound sharing for some reason. That'd be my first guess. Either in the user or in the meeting settings itself. Sometimes it can vary, so I'd check that first. I'd also confirm that that participant's Zoom client is up to date. Seeing weird stuff when people are running out-of-date Zoom versions.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, has anyone used a meter for in-ear monitors like the Sensaphonics DB Check Pro?
And this is a meter for, I'm catching up quickly here. This is designed for, I think this is designed for checking the dB at a concert, at a venue. Like, I was trying to figure out, why are they, or is it designed to test what the effective dB is of your, I just don't know what it's doing. I guess it's designed to make a calculation as to what your in-ear monitor is doing to your ears. So, like, what is the dB at your ears with an in-ear, which is an interesting problem. So you put these in, and a lot of things can make guesses at it. So that what this is calculating is, you tell it. I guess they've measured a whole bunch of. They said 140 in-ear monitors, and so this website is horrible. Mix Online, just posting ads all stuck all over the place. So it's hard to screen share, but here we go. So you can see here that this is what it does, but you plug it in and you're going to tell it what headset you have, and it's going to tell you the effective dB of that headset in your ears, so you can manage whether you're listening to things too loud or not. Interesting. It's really expensive, so you've got to be really sure that you want it. This is more for someone probably working on a concert that is doing in-ear monitors for folks and trying to decide whether they're killing their ears or not. Because this is $500, so it's not like a little thing that you put in your room, unless you got a lot of money. But typically this would probably be used as a service as part of a larger program. So in that context, it could be pretty interesting. Next question.
Next question is from the QR code. Gabriela Echesho Mistiera and Sue St. Marie is asking, big media news. Please comment as media pros about impact on U.S. events on engaging the BeyHive by using a song from the Queen Bee herself in a major campaign. Beyoncé is now known for not licensing her music very often and being super protective of this song.
Go ahead, Jesse.
I encourage everybody who works in media to just really, really, really study wrestling. And that's whether you work in narrative or documentary or live production, but wrestling understands storytelling, and there's nothing more important in the story of every wrestler than their entrance music. So good on Harris, I guess, for getting something that nobody else could get. Like that's like a rock level entrance music that she got there.
And this happens every campaign. Songs that are not very licensed very often get used for something because the artist wants to back up the candidate. So I don't know if I don't think there's anything that's particularly new or special about this. This is what happens every 4 years. Next question.
Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada from the QR code. Can I use the Behringer Flow 8 to operate my Mic+Pre 3 software through the USB port?
I think my question there would be why? Why would you want to do that? And I wouldn't necessarily. The Flow 8, number one, won't control the Mic+Pre, and number two, they're both doing kind of the same thing. So I'm not sure why you would plug those two together. Now, what you can do is there's a variety of MIDI controllers. Korg makes one, Behringer makes one, a variety of other folks that you can plug into the Mic+Pre and then control levels there. So I'd be looking for something that's a lot less expensive and more effective at doing what you're trying to do. Go ahead, Alex.
100%. I mean, first of all, the Flow 8s, it is expensive just to be able to use it as a control surface. So I don't think you can do that with that. But the Korg Nano Control, which I know we've talked about in the past, works really well for a lot of people with the Mic+Pre 3. So I think those are only about $100. So I would explore that.
Yeah, and if you, once again, just a quick reminder that if you are watching and you'd like to ask questions, you can throw those into Makana. You can do that anytime during the show or even before the show. So throw those in there. You can ask questions. You can vote on the questions. You can comment about the questions. And just if you don't know how to get there, go to officehours.global/join. You'll start getting an email. They'll tell you what we're doing every day of the week. It will also give you links to Discord. It'll give you and links to Makana. If you don't want to do any of that, of course, you can go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. We are trying to get a lot of these questions in on the same day, but usually it's a day or two. And a reminder that this is Friday, so if you ask them today, they may come in. They may start coming in on Monday if you ask them after the end of this hour. I have it open right now, but once we get to the end of the show, the next time we use the QR code will be Monday. Because we don't record the shows on the weekend. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York asks, I am working on getting files off a 2009 iMac via FireWire to another 2009 iMac. I'm having trouble actually mounting the iMac that has the files on it. I've restarted both machines, switched cables and ports, but I'm still having issues. Thoughts?
Go to Oliver.
Man, this 2009, that's 15 years plus old computer, and you have two of those still working, which is amazing. So I seem to remember that you have to put one of those computers in what is called the FireWire target disk mode, and you have to press a certain key combination when you start them up to make that happen, and then it should just mount on the other as an external drive, and you can download the files from there. So in more modern times, you can actually hook up two Macs now through Ethernet, and it will just build a peer-to-peer network, and the files get transferred with much faster than FireWire used to ever be able to do that. So, or you can even plug in two Thunderbolt cables and even get like 20 gigabits or so file transfer rate between those machines.
Go, Jesse.
I'm assuming you have a reason to do it this way, but I'm wondering why you don't clone the drive, get an external hard drive, make a clone of your internal hard drive, and transfer the files from a more modern, USB drive than this computer-to-computer transfer. I would really be trying to do everything I can to get those hard drives backed up as quick as possible without this interface problem that you're running into.
Go ahead, Elias.
So target disk mode, if you want to turn that on those old Macs, hold T while it's starting up. That'll put one of the Macs into target disk mode. You should be able to mount it. Alternative options, if you still can boot into Mac OS, maybe enable SSH. You can at least get it onto a network and download the files that way. But I'd second the other recommendations, which is get those hard drives pulled, put them into an enclosure, get them onto a modern Mac. Like if those hard drives are also 15 years old, I'm stunned they're still working.
Next question.
From the QR code, Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada. What's the sound quality difference between the Sony MDR 7506 versus Audio Technica ATH M50X? When listening to recorded music, Logic files and AAC music files through a Mic+3 or Behringer Flow 8 mixer.
Go ahead, Alex.
Well, one of those is tolerable and the other one is not, in my opinion. I'm not a huge fan of the 7506. It's got a, okay, so the thing is the 7506s became very popular in the broadcast world, and I will fully admit why. They're extremely comfortable. They don't weigh very much. They have a lot going for it in that area as far as the ergonomics. The sound quality, though, and it's very crispy on the top end, and it doesn't really produce a lot of low end under 100. I would never use it for anything critical to mix on. If you want something that will work well for not only for tracking purposes where you need good isolation, so you need closed back headphones, which the M50s are, and those are a much better option. So I would look at the M50s. The other option, and I really, really like these, is the Beyer Dynamic DT770s. Those are a closed back pair of headphones, and they are much more natural sounding, far more neutral sounding. They also make the 990s. Now, those are open back. And one thing to keep in mind with these, they both have high impedance, 250 ohms. So you do need a very good quality headphone amplifier to power those, but they do sound noticeably better.
Yeah, and I use the M50s. That's what I literally was doing something with them yesterday, so they happen to be sitting right here. So that's usually the one that I get. They are a little bit more expensive. When we get ones for crews, we need a whole bunch of them, and we don't want to spend quite that much money. We use the AKG K240s, comfortable, solid, and so but when we're buying them, 10 at a time or 5 at a time, we don't necessarily buy the M50s. So those are about looks like they're about $67, which is much less than I remember paying for them in the past. Then they are durable. My kids have some of mine now, and which is a little luxurious to have a teenager sitting there with the K240s for their iPads. But they were laying around, and they have been using those for, I don't know, maybe a decade. They really last, and they get thrown in packs and so on and so forth. So they're pretty durable. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, and one more thing too, always keep an eye out with sales. AKG has, and I don't know if they're still on sale, but they've been doing sales lately on the K7292 and the K240 Studios, which are semi-open back, which I think those are the ones you're talking about, Alex. They have slashed the prices a lot. So if you can find them on sale right now, get those K240s because they will probably go back up to their regular price soon.
Yeah, they are insanely low on Amazon right now. So I think that's why I got surprised. I'm used to paying about $100, $120 for them, and they are right now $67. We're about to clear them out because behind on this show. But it's $67. The AKG K240s are a steal. They're really good. That's an incredible value. It's, again, 58% off according to Amazon. So I'd highly recommend it. Next question.
Jesse Kester in Glendale and here on the panel is asking, as more clients ask for vertical and horizontal delivery, do you think we'll ever see a camera with a large square sensor that allows for crop in both directions in post?
Go ahead, Oliver.
I would love to see a camera like this because that would make a lot of production easier. I don't know of anyone offering one, but I see a lot of social media influencers building themselves like setups with 2 or 3 or 4 iPhones or cameras on one stick, and one is vertical and one is horizontal. So there's definitely a need for a square camera that can be used in both ways. Would be good. Would be great.
Go, Jesse.
So I'm forced to either wait for that lens or that sensor to come out, or the other idea I had was using a beam splitter and having 2 cameras shooting the same thing, one horizontal and one vertical. But I imagine that is not an elegant solution.
I guess the question is at what resolution. So, because typically, like what I've done with a lot of the stuff that I've done that needs to be vertical and horizontal, is I'm using something like a Blackmagic 6K, and I shoot in 6K. So now I'm just panning and scanning inside of it. So I find that you don't necessarily have a square sensor, but you do have enough resolution to set your vertical frame in there. So I think that most of the vertical solutions that we see right now are not running over 1920 high. And so a 4K frame, 3840 by 2160, is already bigger than the vertical frame that you're going to be uploading. And so what I've done is in general use those cameras there. One thing that's really popular that I see when I work with some creators is this is really common. These are stickers that have little suction cups. If you see, if I get up close enough, like these little suction cups, and they cost like, I don't know, they're like $8 on Amazon, and they put them onto their phones, and they're shooting the phones both directions. So they're shooting horizontal and vertical. And if I go to a creator event, I will see at least 5 or 6 people with this combination on their phones, guaranteed. And it's not, it's a really interesting thing. And they just pull them out of their pocket, slap them together, and start shooting. And a lot of times they're sending them to their editors or whatever while they're there, from their phones. So that's one way to kind of approach that. But again, I just shoot a higher resolution and then pan. It gives you so much. I guess my whole thing is, why commit to a vertical frame if you've got enough resolution in your camera? Why commit to a vertical frame when you can sit there and pan and scan? You can make it look so much nicer later. To make that work. The one thing that does become difficult is if you're doing lip sync. A little detail here: if you're doing lip sync on to it, you need to have the app playing back the video to sync all of that back up again. And so so if you're doing it to some movie clip or something else, and so what I do is I mount the camera on top of my bigger camera. And then I can hit play there. I record the whole thing. I have NAT sound going in. I usually have, so that I can hear the audio coming out of the camera. So I've a couple times wired it in, but I didn't really need to. And so now I can resync all of that later to make that all work. So you can do it that way as well. Just a little bit more work, and it looks really nice on TikTok. Go ahead, Oliver.
Just a quick question. Do you know a capture device that can capture 6K in real time, and so we can do live input into the computer? No,
but you can do 4K, and 4K isn't all you really need. I mean, if you're streaming to TikTok or you're streaming to something else, the things that let you stream that way, unless you hack it, there is 4K should be enough. I mean, the other
it will work, but like what you said is like the panning and zooming.
Yeah, but it's hard to pan I guess I would say it's hard to pan and scan live. I mean, you can, but that's a pretty heavy lift, I would say.
We would recognize people or objects in the frame and then
film them. You could do that. Yeah. So I think that we haven't been that advanced. There are some great pan and scan software. AJA used to sell an incredible pan and scan software that I don't think that they sell anymore. Had a joystick to it, and it had a video processor, and we could set frames of where we want to be and move it around with the joystick, and it was super smooth. It was like panning a camera and tilting a camera up and down. It was amazing. It was just $25,000, and I couldn't justify it. I so wanted to, because what was great about it, what we used it for is specifically teleprompter work. So you have 3 people on You have 3 people on a couch, and they're all looking at something for a virtual event, and you want to get one-ups of each one of them, and you want to have a wide shot, and you want them all looking at the camera. And how do you do that? Well, you do that with a big pan and scan system inside of it. So we'd have preset views of each one of them. They were far enough apart that you wouldn't see them in the 16:9. So we just hit a button, and it would go close to anyone that was talking, or you hit another one, it would zoom back out. It was awesome. So I think that now Oliver and I need to talk a little more, because I realized you could do that all in Mimo. So
it's a pretty good idea. I mean, like we actually started doing something like that, where you have a feed, and if there are 3 people in there, you can just define.
I'm usually not
3 close-ups, and automatically have all 4.
I have to admit, I hadn't thought about it, because I haven't had to. The last time I did that was like almost 10 years ago. So that's when we were doing these. So I didn't think about doing it in software, but I realized that now that we're talking, because this really works specifically for addressing the camera. What I don't like is when people do pan and scans when people are talking to each other, because you get these really profile-y images. But doing it when people are all directing towards the same camera is a really interesting use case. Next question.
Next question is from the QR code Chester Sweeney in Las Vegas, Nevada. Is there a top 5 lowest priced good quality audio mixer most commonly used for office hours global or Zoom in general?
Alex?
So these days you can find a lot of options. So when you say mixer, now if you want something with physical faders on it, there are a handful of options. And I really like the new Mackie DLZ Creator. Now, they've actually come out with 2 models now. So it depends on your budget, depends on your requirements for total number of mic inputs. But this is the bigger one, the first one they came out with, which is a 12-channel digital mixer with a massive touchscreen. And the reason why I like this, and I've started recommending it over the RODEcaster, is because it has auto mix on there. So this works really well with open panel discussions. You got a lot of open mics that you want to control. Having that auto mixer push people's voices down when they're not actively speaking is great. It's on sale right now, $699 in the US. And then this is the newer model, the DLZ Creator 6-channel. So if you only need 2 mic inputs, I would look at this for $499. I would much rather have this over a Behringer Flow 8. The preamps have much higher gain, more headroom, and you have a lot more dynamics processing to really control what's going on in your environment. Plus, they both have loopback built in, and you can create custom mixes on the outputs, and they have balanced 1/4-inch TRS outputs. So that's what I would look at.
Go ahead, Jesse.
Something else to consider if you're looking for something a little more budget conscious is the Zoom L8. We use the L20, and one thing we like about these is that it does ISO recording for all audio inputs, and that's really useful when we're doing a video podcast and we have to do post on it to have everybody's isolated audio instead of just the mix.
Jesse, the Zoom mixer that you're using, how has the over when it's when the signal's too hot, does it handle it well now? I mean, this is one of the big problems that they had in the early mixers, is that it would just rip apart into the atmosphere when it got too much signal.
I hate to tell you, we are so overly cautious with overloading a Zoom that we drop everything down by like 6 to 10 dB once we've set levels, knowing that it's, we're better off normalizing in post than hitting that wall.
That was the problem that we had with the Zoom, the mixers that they had. I had a couple of them, and they were just the most ungraceful. When it peaked, it really just tore apart. Like it was not useful at all. It actually, I think, might have hurt some audience members, watching the show. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I can't recommend them for that reason. I've tested those, and you're absolutely right. The analog to digital converters on the Live Track L12, I don't think it's any different on the L8, although I know it's a newer product. But when I tested the L12, it was just awful. I mean, if you're not ultra conservative with the levels and you get someone screaming in there, it's just going to be like, it's really, really bad. So I would recommend staying away from that. Another option too, the Tascam Mixcast 4 has been out for a number of years now, has 4 mic inputs. It's been continuously on sale, so I think Tascam's trying to blow these things out and I think they're $399. I would double check. So they do come slightly under the Mackie DLZ Creator, although the DLZ Creator is a far better product now because of the auto mix and higher gain on the preamps. But the sound quality on the Tascam is good. I've actually owned one for a number of years, and I have one actually set up here on this Zoom computer, and it sounds super, super clean.
Next question.
Tommy Johnson, St. Paul, Minnesota is asking, how can you use multiple Brio or other USB web cameras into a hardware switch?
Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, the suggestion I'm going to give is very expensive for what it is, but it does the trick. It's called a Osbot UVC adapter, and I have one of these. The bummer is that when you hook a Brio up into this, it comes out 4K as wide as it'll go, and there's no way to control it. I did buy the remote control for this, and it only works with Osbot cameras, so you're stuck just wide open. The way that I would do it is either with vMix on a PC, which unfortunately you're maxed out on vMix pretty quick on your USB buses, is how many it'll take in. On the Mac, there's Mimo Live, and that's a little more graceful as far as, for those of you that don't know, Mimo Live stands for multiple in, multiple out. So you can plug multiple USB cameras in and multiple out if you have a quad card or something like that. So you can go SDI. And then over to Oliver to also say Mimo Live.
Yeah. I would not do this. Like, I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of little pieces that you can put into it and everything else. Just get a webcam that has an HDMI output, or use a software switcher like Mimo Live or vMix or something else. But do not try to hack webcams into HDMI. I get that people can do it, but whether they should do it, I think, is a whole other thing. It's just not production ready. Get an HDMI camera. Again, I do shows on Mimo Live with all webcams. So it's not like I'm not saying don't use webcams for a show. But what I'm saying is, if you are going to use a piece of hardware that's expecting hardware inputs, use hardware. The hardware that puts it out natively. And if you're going to do something all on webcams, then use webcams. But don't try to mix and match these. I've watched so many people hack through this, and they end up with, again, I value time, and the amount of time you will spend trying to get this to work is going to be not worth it, in my opinion. Quick reminder, we have an incredible panel next, and we have a lot of questions. I recommend that if you are watching right now, that you go and vote on those questions, because we are not going to get to the bottom of the barrel. So jump in and make sure that you're voting on questions right now, because we're going to be getting into the questions very quickly, and there's no way the next hour will be very full. Next question.
Håkan Fors in Stockholm, Sweden is asking, watching handball in the Olympics yesterday, they had a camera behind the goal on a 4-meter high pole controlled by an operator at the foot of the pole. Any idea what they used?
For a lot of these, if there's any way for you to send us a link if you see it, that'd be great, especially with time code there. I have no idea, because I haven't really been tracking the Olympics just yet, because the ceremony, I believe, begins in a couple hours. So if the handball is in the Olympics, I'm not sure what part. I guess did it start before the ceremony? I thought the ceremony was the first thing. Okay, it has. No. Okay, they've already started. So I had it in my head that there's a ceremony, and then after the ceremony we start playing games. But I am evidently horribly wrong. So I haven't been paying much attention. I was wondering why there's this. I see sports popping up, and I was like, what is going on here? But there is the ceremony is today. I believe that the pomp and circumstance begins, I believe, at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 9:30 Pacific Standard Time, and we expect probably 4 or 5 hours of pomp and circumstance before they actually get to the lighting of the torch. So that's all going to be happening this morning into the early afternoon. So definitely check that out, and do ask questions, please, about the ceremony or about the Olympics. We do expect to be talking about some of the stuff that we saw next week. We know that it'll be a heavy week, so pay attention to the Olympics, but try to send us some kind of links so that we can know what you're talking about. It's hard during the show for us to go out and find those signals, in real time. So definitely include them, but we do expect the next week or two to be very heavy Olympics-driven discussions. We'll be talking. We have an incredible super group of NDI experts coming up here in just a minute. Just a quick reminder that, of course, we have the weekend is coming. We have Q&A on Saturday. We also have the volunteer meeting on Saturday. So if you're interested in volunteering, it's not really built for new volunteers, mostly just a volunteer discussion, but we can address things for you. So if you're interested, that's at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And then on Sunday is the introspection day. So Sunday is when we think about and talk about a lot of these things. And so if you have questions, concerns, ideas for office hours, Sunday is the right day to bring them to you. A lot of times if you ask them during the week, we kind of skip over them just because it's just something that it's hard for us to talk to during the week. It's kind of an inside baseball discussion, but that's all Sunday is. And if you don't know that, it's because we don't broadcast it. It's more of an internal discussion. So, but we'd love to have you as part of that conversation. So come on Sunday. It's the same bat time, but a different bat place. So we hope to see you there.